Good afternoon, Mr. Saikat Saha, and thank you for being here today and taking out time from your busy schedule to come be a part of Brag Free, an initiative by the Badge Free team. I, Navreet, on behalf of Badge Free, welcome you to yet another episode of Brag Free, a vlog initiated to get industry experts to share their experiences with our audience. Before I move forward, I would like to walk you through the company and the initiative of Brag Free. Badge Free, as you know, is a talent management company. We are on a journey to craft India's foremost and distinctive human equity investment marketplace, a platform that caters to yearning needs of talent for and at work, beyond learning and earning. We believe that every leader of talent has a unique story to share on his or her journey of experience and career. We encapsulate these lessons in our series called Brag Free Dialogue with the hope and belief that we will encourage the next generation of leaders to unleash themselves to newer heights. On Brag Free Dialogue, we invite special executive talents for an online video session to share how they started, the challenges they've overcome, their moments of truth, and much more. Thank you so much, sir, once again for being here. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to learn more about your experiences, skills, perspectives, and the various roles that you play. For all the viewers of this episode, I would begin today's session by giving a brief introduction about our guest and today's discussion point, which I shall be keeping very brief because I would want to know from the expert himself about his journey and let him set the tone for the discussion. Saikat Saha is a senior leadership development specialist in the Fortune 100 companies. In 2020, he was selected as one of the top 25 HR influencers on social media by SHRM India. In a career span over 13 years, he has played various roles that include leadership development, OD, campus recruitment, campus engagement, HRBP, product management, and consulting. And during the discussion, we will be talking about his journey and the various roles he has played and much more. During this conversation, all the opinions and thoughts shared by Saikat are his personal, and he is not representing his current or past employers or institutions. Now, over to you, sir. The floor is now open to let our audience know a little bit about you and your journey.
Thank you. Thank you, Navreet. Just a correction first. First and foremost, I'm not an expert. I think I consider myself as a learner, as a lifelong learner. The possibilities are multifold when you are a learner, vis-a-vis an expert. So I'm just a learner, and as Robin Sharma kind of says, right, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Today, I am ready as a learner. And I take this opportunity as just as a learning opportunity for myself as well. So all the viewers are my teachers here.
Thank you.
Over to you. Any questions, anything you want to explore, please feel free to ask them. I'm sure whatever I have signed up for is going to be very purposeful.
Right. Thank you. Now I would begin by asking Saket to walk us through early days of his career. What challenges did he navigate, and what were the opportunities did he leverage in his career?
It's been about 13 years. The word early career is so relative. I don't know if I'm still in my early careers or not, but I assume for the sake of this conversation, early career would be maybe the first 18 months, 24 months of your professional stint. And if that's so, my early career kind of dates back to 2010, when I completed my master's in human resource management from the Madras School of Social Work. And at that point, I joined the fastest growing ITS company in the world. Now, you specifically said the word challenge, right? The kind of challenges I navigated. There were multitudes of challenges which I faced, right? It was not all rosy, though there was support from all corners. There were different challenges I faced in my whole campus to corporate transition. But there are two or three challenges. You have to give me some time because I'm kind of recollecting those early days. So there are like two or three challenges which really stood out, and they kind of helped me become the professional who I am today. So I'll probably focus on one or two of those challenges, how I navigated through them. Now, the first challenge which I faced, now I was in a new company, and out of a very different context. My earlier context was that of being in campus. Before my master's, I had a 11-month stint with again one IT major, but my HR career kind of started post uh, my master's. So for this conversation, what I'm considering is my whole journey from 2010 onwards. So the first challenge which I faced was the sheer size, the scale at which this company was operating. Right at that point, uh, it's very safe to say the company I was working for at that juncture had one of the largest people function team. Uh, just by sheer number of people who were part of the team at that juncture, various roles. And for me, as somebody who was very aspirational at that point of time, I can continue to be very aspirational. But at that point of time, aspiration had a whole different meaning altogether. You just wanted to come there, prove yourself, succeed. And it took me some time to just figure out what great really looks like in this new context. Because there's so much happening. It was so hard to really differentiate the signal from the noise. There's so much happening around. And in that sense of, that whole overwhelming feeling of being in such a large company, such a large team, uh, the thing which I did, now comes how I navigated, right? So there's this whole overwhelming feeling. I was lucky to, and I continue to be lucky to have some great mentors throughout my career journey. And at that point of time, also, there was this one particular mentor who used to come and visit our campus pretty regularly. And I wrote an email to this mentor. Today, he's an industry leader. I wrote an email to this leader, and I really blurted out what I was going through, right? This whole feeling of overwhelm. Uh, I'm not able to, I wrote to him, I'm not able to really gauge what great will really look like in this company. What will it really take for me to succeed in this company? What he wrote back to me was very comforting. He told me the first 5 years, and I'm sure the same response today could be very different. Now I'm talking about a context back in 2010 when things were very different. So he mentioned for the first 5 years, don't worry too much about, what role you are doing, right? How much you are earning, what absolute success or relative success really looks like in your immediate context. Be open to learning. For the first 5 years, consider your company almost like a lab. And you are there to do different experiments, right? With all the right intention, with all the right intentions. Sometimes the experiments will succeed. Sometimes it will not give you the right result, but be very open. Almost consider your early career days as a reverse T, where the horizontal line in the bottom is the different experiences which you are gathering. And in the process of experiencing those different, of getting those different experiences, you kind of get a better understanding of what you really enjoy, what is your calling. So I did that, and I was lucky that in my first 4 years itself, I kind of found my mojo, what I really want to do, what excites me, which is leadership development, right? Uh, so I followed that, and the second challenge, if I have to recall, was the acceptance of reality. The acceptance of reality. I mean, if it had to be a chapter, I would call it the acceptance of reality. Now, I told you, I mean, I was and I continue to be very aspirational. So I joined the company with this aspiration of being very successful, of delivering the kind of outcomes that my leaders expected me to deliver. So very excited, But so I joined this company in the month of June or July, June, right? In the month of June. So I was eligible for my performance rating, my annual performance rating, even though I had kind of spent about 6 months in the company. When the rating came, and by all assumptions, I told myself, I mean, there is no way I'll get anything other than the best rating. When the rating was announced, I had got the lowest rating, which was very humbling at that point. Which was very humbling. Humbling was not the first emotion. The first emotion was that of shock, of not being able to accept the fact that, how can I be rated 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 with this particular rating. There was a lot of unacceptance in the beginning, and after some conversations, I kind of understood. While you are doing your masters in human resource, you understand what a bell curve is, you understand what relative or absolute rating is, but to go through it is a different game altogether. To experience it all is something all absolutely different, and all the more if you are having the wrong, if you are having the rating which you don't deserve, right? You well, if you have the rating which you do not like, I wouldn't say not deserve. Whatever I got was very deserving, but it was very hard to accept that rating. So many of the listeners who are in their early career phase could be in the same situation as I was back in 2010. So accepting the rating was very hard, and luckily at that point, what happened was there was this open house which was being conducted, and there were many people who were there was this whole Q&A which was going on, and there was this one guy who asked a brilliant question to the leader out there. Now this leader also had this journey of being a trainee, and today he had evolved to be a global business BU head. So somebody asked a question to this leader, and that was my question. I also wanted to ask the question, but I didn't ask the question because early on in my career, I was very swayed by optics. I did things which would make me look good rather than doing those things which will make me better. Looking good was more important than becoming good. So in the open house, I was not too keen to ask this question, but thankfully somebody asked this question to this leader that, I have got this rating. So very bold thing to say. I've got this rating. This guy also had got the same rating which I had got. Will this jeopardize my career? Will this spoil my career? So the answer from this leader was very comforting. So the leader said, my first rating in the company was also the same as you have got. And today I'm in a pretty happy space, right? I'm in a pretty happy space. He did not say much that he's the global head or what, but it was kind of understood that the way you start your career, the kind of things that happens to you in the beginning of your career, needn't have a great deal of negative influence in your future narrative, to say so, right? So instead of that particular whole that conversation between that individual and the leader made me reflect deeply that whatever has happened to me, I'm going to reframe this whole piece as something that has happened for me, not to me, but for me. And in hindsight, at that point of time, I thought, the leader grew in his career in spite of his not so great first rating, right? But in hindsight, as I became a more matured individual, a more matured professional, today I reflect upon and I think the leader could have, and in my own lived story also, my career story also, I have grown because of my first rating, not in spite of my first rating, because that happened. And and that rating kind of helped me reflect. See, the things which go wrong in your early career, they give you a lot of scope to reflect. All the right things that happen in your career, especially in the beginning of your career, that give you a lot of reason to celebrate, but necessarily not to reflect. So I am very thankful my career started on such a deep reflective note. And the reflection, by the way, begins from acceptance. And that's why I kind of titled this chapter of my career journey as acceptance of the reality. When I was not fighting that reality and kind of accepted it is what it is, and I very deservingly got the rating which I got, because others would have done better than me in the same similar context. I became a lot more deliberative about how I reflect. And at that point of time also, to be very specific, what I realized was while I was giving a lot of energy towards things I was enjoying, I was not being very intentional about the things which were very important for the team.
Right.
I was good at certain things naturally. And it just became a lot more exciting to continue doing those things and not be deliberate about clarifying things with my leaders, what is actually important for the team. So all that deliberation, all those deep reflections can be attributed to the early challenges I faced. About the second part, which you kind of asked, the opportunities that I leveraged, right, Navreet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the opportunities which I leveraged, well, okay, this is not to sound humble or be falsely modest here. But one common denominator that has been very consistent in my career has been luck. I have been very lucky in my career. And more than anything in my career, I don't know if this sounds depressing, but this is as real as it gets. The function of one particular thing, I cannot call it a virtue or anything else. So I'm just calling it a thing. One thing which can be attributed the most to my limited success in my limited career is luck. So I was very lucky to have the kind of leaders I have had. So in my whole career of 13 years, probably the 6-7 managers I have worked under, almost all of them were not very good. They were great. Most of the managers I have worked under have been great, barring maybe one who was not so great, right? But not to digress, coming back to the opportunities I leveraged. So a lot of the opportunities I leveraged were leveraged because of the kind of nudges that my leaders gave me. I still remember back in 2013, which was a very defining moment in my career. Right? I was doing very well. I had been promoted just 6 months from that particular time period I'm talking about. I'd just been a fresh promoted, professional at that juncture. I was doing very well what I was doing. But I was doing what I was doing very well, not because I was absolutely enjoying what I was doing. Yes, I was enjoying. But it was also because I was doing certain things repetitively. When you do certain things repetitively, more at a first principle, you do things repetitively, you become better at it. It could be anything, right? So I was in a context where I had to do certain things repetitively. I became very good at it. That reflected on my subsequent ratings, my promotions and everything. But there was a particular part in my role at that point. And that point I started my career with, as you mentioned in my introduction, with campus recruitment, campus engagement. This was the phase where I was doing HRBP, a very solid, stable HRBP role. And my manager at that point, I told her that, there's this particular learning intervention that I want to experiment with. And she was open to that experiment, right? She said, okay, go ahead. So I designed that particular learning intervention. I didn't have to. I mean, there was a L&D team out there, a very specialized L&D team. But she gave me that whole autonomy to design a learning intervention and do it by myself. That she just had one condition, that when you do the learning intervention, I want to be there. So she flew from her city to my city. I was getting virtually managed at that particular point of time. Manager was sitting in a different city. She she flew to the city where I was doing this particular program. She sat through the program, extremely encouraging, gave me valuable feedback, very objective feedback about the things which I did well, the things which I did not do well, about few insights from that learning intervention which she had. But she ended the whole conversation with something very powerful. And only very secure leaders do that. And I was very lucky to have such secure, very good leaders at that juncture. She said, Saikat, you are the right person, but in the wrong place. I think you belong to LND team. And I want you to, I am willing to do, I am willing to give you a free hand. You figure out how you can land into the LND team. You figure out the dynamics, you figure out everything, how you can land. Any support you require, you will let me know. I'll do the needful from my end. But I really want you to see, I really want you to realize your calling. And I assume your calling is L&D, learning and development. So that was a turning point. That's how opportunities. I mean, you can, as much as you want to plan for your career, I think your career happens to you. Happens for you, I will say. It happens for you. Sometimes you feel it is happening to you, but eventually it happens for you. And in my whole narrative of leveraging opportunities, I think it was leaders who played very important role. These leaders helped me play those roles that gave me a lot of energy. I hope you're doing good with time. So sorry for the very long-winded answer. I was just kind of reliving those very cherished memories, old days.
Yeah, so, and I think I was also living in that movie, along with you. Okay. Yes. Yes. So moving on. Sure. My next question would be, how do you think one can gain greater clarity on career expectations?
Okay. So I would like to answer that in the here and now, not so much in terms of my career and what worked for me. I think the pace at which things are moving today, agnostic of companies, I mean, across companies, across industries, things are moving at a very rapid pace, right? We have not experienced, I mean, I'm not talking about this from a company standpoint, but from a general context, right? The amount of information inflow, the amount of digital disruption that we are encountering today, we are witnessing. I think we have not witnessed this in the past. This is the scale of it, the pace of it. And keeping that particular context in mind, I feel what will be right today, and probably my mentors wouldn't have given me the same advice back in 2010, but what will work today, and I don't say that with certainty. I say this with good sense of confidence, but not certainty, is keep playing new roles, be open to new roles, and figure out to what extent you want to be persistent with a particular role you're playing in a company. Or if you're working for yourself with your product, anything, right? To what extent you want to be persistent, right? Listen to a lot of people, listen to a lot of your stakeholders, listen to your leaders, but ultimately you decide this is the point till which I will persist with this particular role. These are the outcomes, or this is the direction which my role needs to take me towards.
Right.
And at different milestones, kind of ask you different points of your journey, kind of ask yourself, am I moving in that desired direction? Am I delivering those kind of outcomes which I at a high level wanted to accomplish when I started this journey? Today, you have to ask those questions a lot more quickly, a lot more early on. In 2010, I could wait. I had the luxury to wait. today I think a lot of people don't have that luxury to wait. And try, and I've been very lucky that way. I've always worked with the kind of companies which have given me a lot of opportunities, multitude of opportunities, different opportunities uh, to dabble with till that point where I really figured out, okay, I want to do this. Like in my case, it was leadership development. So be very intentional about be very open to learning new things, playing new roles. Be very intentional about the outcomes you want to achieve in those roles. To what extent you want to be persistent, and that could mean the time. I'm again saying this at the risk of being repetitive. And if required, when required, more than if, it's the when. When required, quit. And by quit, I don't mean quit your company. By quit, I mean quit that monotony. Quit could be the role, the monotony. Within the role itself, you could do different things.
Things.
Right? You could do different things. But break that rhythm. Break that rhythm. Right? Be very intentional about breaking the rhythm. Till you really find, okay, this is the thing I want to live with. I mean, thankfully, I found it sometime, but yeah. So that's my thing. You will gain clarity by experimenting a lot, being intentional, and all the things which I just now mentioned here.
I think it's going to help, a lot of people who, are not ready to take that leap of hope. I hope it helps them.
That's the intention.
So,
I hope
yes.
so.
So when did you realize that you wanted to build a career as a leadership development professional?
Oh, what a timing! What a timing! So, okay, time, a very straight-jacketed answer. It was back in 2015-16, somewhere around 15-16. So, so back in like till about 2013, to be very frank, the word leadership development was not even part of my vocabulary. The word leadership development was part of my vocabulary from a very theoretical academic standpoint. From a corporate, from a role career standpoint, leadership development, the word was not very intentional. There was a very important trigger though. So I think I might not be very correct in mentioning the timeline. Somewhere around 2015-16, the company I was working for, I if I remember correctly, we were not growing by double digit at that juncture, if I'm right. I mean, the pace of the growth of that company was not as much as we would have liked at that particular juncture. And in spite of the context, that context around us, our then CEO, if I remember correctly, said something very inspiring. He had mentioned, if the company has to grow in leaps and bounds right now, if we have to really shift gears, then it will be very important to grow our leaders, to develop our leaders faster than the growth of the company itself. That was very inspiring. That honestly blew my mind, right? And it's that particular juncture when the global leadership development team of that company I was working for was getting founded. So it was almost like a startup within this, big Fortune 500 company, which we were forming. And luckily I was part of that startup, that founding team. So we pretty much built the global the leadership development team from scratch at that particular juncture, and it was a very fulfilling exercise. And just surely by luck, I was again. So positioning in life, I think, is very important. And at very pivotal points of my career, I was positioned exactly in the right place to learn the right things. And in fact, my first role in the leadership development team was more of a PMO role, where I was like, I was more of, in Hindi you called it the I'm not getting the right word. So I was more of the aggregator, the integrator who's putting things together, right? More like the Sutradhar, putting things together. And did I enjoy the role at that juncture? I had a lot of fun doing that role, but there were other roles around me which I was more aspirationally driven to do, right? But when I connect the dots back, me being in that PMO kind of a role helped me to see things from a vantage point. Because I was doing that role, I could actually understand what the other roles, uh, uh, what the other roles were all about, right? I could figure that out only because of my positioning at that point. So, like you have full stack developers in a technology stand from a technology standpoint. I could very early on in my leadership development career, back in 2015-16, could really figure out what a full stack leadership development professional would really look like. So yeah, that's a again relatively long answer to your very crisp question.
Yes. So, for an audience,
Yeah.
what does a leadership development professional typically do?
Okay.
One like,
So a leadership development professional, I mean, the word itself is the nomenclature in itself is very intuitive, right? So these are professionals who help leaders to develop. So these could be first time leaders, these could be leaders who have been in the company for a long time. They could be shifting the context in which they will be leading. And you help them to perform their leadership roles but through development journeys, through various things, right? But what does the role really entail? What does a leadership development professional do? Okay, so I'll answer this more from the what a full stack leadership development professional will do, right? And this whole thing could be fragmented into different other roles which can be performed. So, in my view, a full stack leadership development professional would he would be a world class consultant who would be able to go to different leaders, different business unit leaders, vertical leaders, and understand from those leaders why is a leadership development journey really, what are the problems which we have to really solve for. Does it really require a leadership development journey or a leadership development intervention or something else? It could actually require a OD intervention or a talent management intervention, something. So validating that, and the skill which I can really boil down to is not a very glamorous skill, right? Not a very glamorous skill, but just the art of questioning, kind of questions you ask your business leaders to really unearth that truth, the unearth that reality, validate that reality. So, the leadership development profession has to play the role of the consultant. And so apart from being a consultant, once the problem has been understood, has been validated, you also start playing the role of a solution designer or a solution architect. What kind of solution would really work, right? I'm not going into great details, right? But being a solution architect or a solution designer is a very important part. Then comes, the project management bit. In your leadership development team or as a full stack leadership development profession, you also have to play the role of being a great project manager or a product manager for that matter. Your leadership development solution could be a product by itself. So how do you manage the product? How do you manage that whole learning intervention? So managing that could be important one. Delivering the learning intervention. So whether it could be in form of a facilitator. So if it's a one-to-many kind of an intervention where there is a cohort of leaders or soon-to-be leaders you are helping them with, then it could be more of you playing the role of a facilitator, right? You have to be an excellent facilitator. The intervention could be also a one-to-one kind of an intervention where you're coaching someone. So you could be playing the role of an excellent coach, right? So there are different roles you can play within, and it really depends on the size of your company. A lot of times, sometimes size in the context of your company. Sometimes in the company you are working for, you could be playing a full stack leadership development professionals role, or you could be playing the bits and pieces of, all the roles which I kind of mentioned. And the list is not over. You could be doing so many other things. You could be the numbers guy. You could be very well be the numbers guy. You could be the guy who could be really figuring out how well the leadership development interventions that you have designed and delivered, how well they are able to create the kind of impact, realize the kind of outcomes that it was originally designed for. So you could be doing data analytics, you could be really crunching numbers, you could be figuring out very intelligent ways to measure impact of your leadership leadership development interventions. So multitude of things which you can do, which people can do as leadership development professionals. And that's why my role is so gratifying to me. This profession which I am into is so gratifying to me. It helps me to do different things within one umbrella. And yeah, over to your next question. If I have answered your question, that is.
Right. Yes, you have. What has been the most compelling insight about leadership? Like, what have
okay, if I heard it right, most
what has
compelling
been your
insight
most yes.
about leadership.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So I wonder if I can, in today's day and age, when there is so much of wisdom around, you just have to type in Chat GPT or Professor Google, and then you can consult him to, with that same frame of question. There will be so much of wisdom which will come out. So there's a lot of wisdom around that particular question out there. I'm not sure what I can add to it, but there's one distinct thing which I have seen from very close quarters working with so many leaders over the years, right? One thing I find as a common denominator among most leaders, irrespective of how good or bad they are, right? Most leaders have to deal with a lot of loneliness, right? And let that sink in and kind of land, right? They might not be alone. I mean, a leader is always surrounded by a lot of people. You are a leader, you have so many people around you, but in spite of that crowd around you, I think most leaders, what I have seen, some of them have been very vocal about it to me in my one-on-one conversations, that it feels like a very lonely space out there. Right?
Right. That's
what makes you, absolutely, what makes you, and I don't see a lot of intentional literature, empirical studies on this piece. I mean, if any of your viewers has gone through any good research content or anything, and please mail it to me on my personal mail ID, saikatsaha23@gmail.com. Please feel free. But I have not found a lot of people talk about loneliness at the top. Just not at the top. I mean, you have leaders across levels, and it can be a little lonely. So you are a great leader. I mean, those leaders are great who deal with that loneliness in a lot more graceful manner than the others. They remain great as leaders for a long sustained period. People who are not able to deal with that loneliness are ones who derail at some point or the other. Over to you, Navneet.
Right.
Hope that helps.
Yes, that was. I wasn't expecting that answer.
Okay.
A great insight. Yeah. So, what have you found common amongst all the great leaders that you worked in? Like, what makes them all great, according to you?
Who I've worked with, right? You're talking about my lived experience. Okay.
Yes.
So this is specific to this answer is not from a very academic standpoint. I'll just say this with hopefully a great deal of sharpness. What I have found very common, and almost as a common denominator amongst all the great leaders I have worked with, almost like a paradox, right? Almost like two ends of the continuum. They they are very good at two things. One,
Hmm.
and you have a lot of people talking about this. There's a lot of literature around this, and absolutely rightfully so, which is empathy. They empathize with you. They evoke the right kind of emotions that needs to be evoked at a particular context. Okay, they don't most of the times, not always, right? And best of the best leaders also, they cannot always do the right things. I mean, there are weak moments and they fail at times, right? But most of the times they are very good at evoking the right emotions. They almost make you feel, as a follower, they make you feel that you are being cared for. Your feelings become more important to them than the 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 outcome, the expectation that has to be realized.
Right.
I have
Right.
performed at my peak when I have worked under those kind of leaders who just don't care about giving you developmental feedback, right? They also care about how you are being positioned in front of other stakeholders, right? And that comes from a very deep space of empathy, I believe.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's one. The other piece, which they are very good at, is their leadership skills. Now, what do I mean by leadership skills? And this piece of the answer is not very flamboyant and very glam. It's how it is. These leaders are very good at conducting their team rituals. Every leader is I mean, from a physical space or a virtual space, they are bound. They they're close to their team by virtue of certain rituals. Today, all of us are working in hybrid model, right? How will you stay close to your team? Almost like under one roof or one virtual roof. You will do that by virtue of rituals. Great leaders are very good with their team rituals. It could be a meeting. So it's as unglamorous as how well they conduct their team meetings. By well, I mean the kind of feelings they evoke in a particular meeting from their team, the kind of commitment they can gain during a particular meeting, the kind of direction, the kind of clarity, the kind of energy they infuse during a team meeting, the kind of alignment they can seek during a team meeting. We talk about all these aspects which I just now spoke about, but we don't specifically talk about these things popularly uh, in the context of a ritual. Great
Right.
leaders, they do all these right things in the context of their regular rituals. So at one end, it's about the head, the mind, right? The skills, which is the skills, which is what you do in your ongoing sustained rituals. On the other hand, it's about the feelings, it's about the heart, right? So it's not that one leader can be great with the rational aspect of things and not he give too much of heat towards the feelings or the heart part of it, and vice versa. It doesn't work for a sustained period. The best of the
Right.
best leaders, the best of the best leaders who have championed their causes in different contexts have done both the things brilliantly.
Right.
So yeah, at least in my lived
Yeah.
experience, right? And then there is so much which I don't know, and that's why I said I'm not an expert. I'm a learner. There's a lot more
Learner.
to learn. There's a lot more to learn to answer that question in a better manner. Navreet.
Right. With that, I come to the last question of today.
Okay.
What is the legacy you want to leave behind as a leadership development professional at the end of your
Wow.
career?
I'm glad. I'm glad you are asking this question. I'm glad you are asking this question. This is such a powerful question. I think all of us, we live with a current identity, and all of us have an aspired identity. I mean, your question kind of helps me become more intentional about my aspired identity, right? What is going to be my last or lasting identity? Uh, in the wee hours of my career. Sorry if I'm taking time to answer this, but I hope I'm remembered as someone who helped many leaders. So the word many is important here. The scale is important. So I hope I'm able to help many leaders recognize a space in themselves, a particular space in themselves through which they are able to create lasting impact. A particular space that they were not aware of, but by virtue of the interventions that I design with my team, my leaders, or the conversations, the coaching conversations, or those personal conversations they have with me, they're able to find that space which they had not seen for themselves. I hope I become that catalyst, and I'm remembered as that catalyst in the end of my leadership development journey, or life for that matter. Because I mean, my life and my leadership development journey has to go parallelly to each other. I have found what I want to do for my life. As long as as I breathe, the body is functional, the brain is functional. Most importantly, the heart is functional. I hope I'm able to help leaders. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking out time and sharing your valuable experiences and expertise with us today.
Not
Your
expertise,
insights have
not expertise, not expertise. Just some of my humble learning. Yeah.
your insights have truly been enlightening. For me, I wasn't expecting answers to so many questions. I had so much differently thought in my mind.
Okay.
So
I'm glad
before
that happened.
yes,
I'm glad that happened.
so before closing, any top three takeaways, a special message for the audience that you would want to give to anybody who watches our interview?
I'm not sure about three, but one most definitely, because you made me reflect on my journey. Be reflective about things, about the good things, especially the good things and the great things that happen in your career, in your life. How much of that has happened because of you, and how much of that has happened in spite of you? And I connected back with the first answer, which I kind of the answer to the first question which you had given. So that's the first one. The second one, find what you are truly passionate about. And sometimes it may take time. It may take time to find what you are really passionate about. We all have our we all have our pacing in life, right? There is a particular timing in our life, uh, and each to our own, right? There's no right or wrong. Virat Kohli will not be at his peak at the age of 50, but you can be a super programmer. You can be a super full stack developer at the uh, uh, at a particular age. You could be a great technology head. You could be a great technology architect at the age of 50, but Virat Kohli cannot be at his prime. So, I mean, don't compare yourself, compare your journey with others. You are in your own journey, and yeah, trust the timing. The third one, you said three. The third one, I'm, I mean, just, think of, just be grateful, and think of yourself as the stardust, right? I mean, when the going is not going great, think of yourself as a star, and because I mean, that's where you have come from. You are a star, but when things are going great, stay grounded, and also remember the fact that you will be dusted one day. I mean, you have to meet the dust one day. So just remind yourself of your sustained identity, whether it's your current or aspirational. One thing will be constant: you are a stardust. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again for your time and your valuable input. We wish you best of luck for your career endeavors, and we hope to connect with you soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Navri. Thanks for creating this opportunity. Thanks for creating this opportunity. God bless. Thanks.
Thank you.